So this week I've been thinking a lot about transitional systems. I'm calling them transitional systems, but they're emerging systems. There's so many different names for them, but they are a system you use when you are in a massive transition, which right now I am in a massive transition. So since my children were born, so for the last 10 years, I've been the sole provider in the house. So I've done all of the work, all of the money that comes in is from us, and we've been supported by state benefits. I'm going to call them state benefits so America knows what we mean. Um, and recently we decided, one, I was having a pivot in my business. It was a mini pivot because people already knew what I was talking about, and frequent listeners know the pivot because I've been doing it almost live on here. Um, in some way, shape, or form. And so it meant that revenue was down because during a pivot, your marketing changes and you're having to think of a lot of different things. So the revenue was down. And my partner wanted to go back to work. She has always wanted to work. But we both decided because she was there, like, I want to look after the kids. I want to be there for the kids. And it turned out that she was like, I want to work. I want to get some money in. We need to get some extra revenue just to help us, so we can be just a little bit more free to do what we want because it sucked. And so she applied for a bunch of jobs and it wasn't working because they're boring jobs that she didn't want to do. And then she got a job down at our local pub. I'll just call it the local pub. My partner's grown up in a
UK,
pub.
there's loads of pubs.
Yeah, exactly.
The local pubs.
Pubs. She grew up in a pub when she was a kid, so she knows that space well, and she's very, very good at it. Just so happens it used to be where I used to work as well when I was like 16, 17, which was really hilarious. And
How things
now,
spin around.
yeah, it's good, isn't it? And so what's been happening through that time is, for me, I've taken on the responsibility of running my business and also taking on the majority of the housework, the majority of helping the kids, doing the food, doing all the little things, which sounds, for people who stay at home all the time, it's an easy thing to do. But for me, my brain is like, this needs to be organized in a way that my brain fit, because I've worked for so long in the patterns that I have, so I'm used to my way of working, and that disruption has caused a lot of, like, everything dropped because I was like, I have to drop everything and I have to really look at what I'm doing. So I threw everything to the ground because that's what I needed to do. And I just stripped everything back to the very bare essentials. So when I have a transitional system, that means for me, it needs to be quick, it needs to be fast, and it needs to just stay out of my way, because I don't actually know right now what I need. Because, of course, this is a new environment that I'm in. And so I am building that as I go. And I need to have more awareness of my environment than I do completing the things that I need to do. So I needed something fast. So I switched to Morgan for task management. It just so happened it coincided with Fantastical's renewal, and it was like an extra 10, 15 quid a month, a year. And I was like, no, screw that. I liked the look of Morgan. Morgan's kind of cool. And it's a local developer and it's a small developer versus a massive big company. And so I prefer it.
Just for clarification, that's Fantastical was more, not Morgan. Because you were talking about Morgan, you said Fantastical and then said it's more. And I was like, just for clarification.
Fantastical is more expensive. Yes, Fantastical is more expensive. And I was like, I've seen Danny use Morgan. I like what Morgan can do. Fantastical and Morgan can do similar things reasonably well, but switching to Morgan was kind of a no-brainer because it was cheaper, and two, I like smaller developers, as I said. And so I've just been, I dumped every single task. I just followed what I usually do. I brain dump everything, absolutely everything that I think I have to do, and it's in a task and it goes into my calendar as an all-day event, and then I actually drag it in to decide what I'm doing. When I get Tory shifts, which sync via a Google Calendar, thank you, the company we work for, to be able to allow you things like iCal and Google Calendar, because that made me smile. And it was really helpful because I was like, ooh, finally, I don't have to keep asking my poor partner to be able to write it in, because every time she never remembered. So I'm like, I get that you're not a calendar person. I am.
That is Morgan's, like, to me, that's Morgan's first selling point: the ability to combine every calendar, not just the big ones, but every calendar.
Yeah, just being able to sync an iCal Dav and immediately have it coming in, and it's just beautiful. I actually did it with Google still because it updates faster. With Google, because then I can have it across devices and I don't have to register on every single device, because I had to when I had it just the task calendar on its own. And then I've got the buttons. The buttons are fun. I just love pressing the buttons. The 0, the 1, the 2, and being able to just see things that I need to see.
Sets.
Yeah, the calendar sets are so much fun. They're just fun. They're also very useful too, but I just enjoy
pressing it. Everything practical.
They are incredibly practical. And so it's not perfect. I can't wait for their mobile experience to come out of alpha, beta, and be a fully fledged thing, because right now there are weird bugs. Which
alpha, it's in the middle.
Yeah, it's in alpha. It feels alpha to me. But yeah, it was just very much focusing on watching the environment, because of course I don't just have me in that. I have my 2 kids who are also diagnosed autistic. So they have different needs, and it's also my partner's differing needs, because they've changed a lot, because she's working and just trying to figure out and navigate a new job, one that she's not done, although she's grown up in that world. She's not done that job, and she's been out of traditional work, for the last, I think, 15, 20 years. So it's been a big shift for all of us, and it's been fun. But yeah, so transitional systems, would definitely recommend it.
It's funny because I'm going through / will go through more soon. I can't say too much about it, but basically I'm going to be commuting to London most days now from Eastbourne. So yeah, John's face is like,
I know. Yeah, I know.
John I knows. John's in the know, but yeah. So
we're going to talk about that after. Screw you lot. This could be a short episode. You got 2 hours just last week.
But yeah, so my systems are not going to drastically change, but working with another person is obviously going to impact how I work, how they work, like figuring out systems, processes, etc., etc. Now, I had already made a change to my Obsidian, but I may be not changing mine, but using it slightly differently. So for those that use Obsidian, this will make sense. For those that don't, I will try and make it simple. You have a Vault folder in Obsidian. I've traditionally had a Vault folder for my work, and then Vault folders for either templates or working with other people. So I've got one with, almost name drop there, one with a person that I'm helping do some research for, one with yourself, and then I will probably need another one for the future work that's not related to the old work. God, it's hard to be political. Yeah, so essentially I'm going to need multiple Obsidian Vault folders for all the work that I do. And I'd already split it up in having I'm going to say this as Minecraft. I have my personal Vault, my personal world, and then I have my multiplayer server, my multiplayer vaults. And the way Obsidian Collaborative Sync does it is really nice, because you can see your sync vaults at the top and then the collaborative ones down the bottom. So I will see the 2 collaborative ones separate from my personal ones. So just like Minecraft, sort of like when you sign in server thing. But yeah, so my personal one, I did just have one, but now I have 2. One for my personal stuff, one for my research. And the reason I separated them was because I share all of my work through Obsidian Publish.
Of course, yeah.
I have folders and files that I don't share on Publish. My old journal notes I took off of Publish. Some small files I took off of Publish. My personal ones, obviously, I took off of Publish. So I essentially had 2 Vault folders inside of one. It was like this selection of folders is published. This selection of folders isn't published. And in my head, I knew what was going on because it was all sorted, all filtered. Everything worked with the Publish. Publish did it automatically. Excluded folders. Easy. But what I thought of is, well, some of the research projects I'm doing now I know
Mm.
I would like to be in some way multiplayer potentially in the future, as we've discussed previously, having like a Minecraft multiplayer type server, where I do a project, a writing project of me exploring stuff, and then someone else do a project. Maybe they do a project completely unrelated, and they sort of build in their own area essentially. But I'd still want it in one place, so it'd all be pushed to one published site. In which case, I need a multiplayer style server for my research, which is exactly what I've done. I put all my research into one place, which actually simplified a lot of the stuff that I have, because I now don't need essentially the redundant files, like the old video files. I don't need in my research. They're not projects. I don't need the people files because they're not related to my research projects. They're just people files that I have mainly for links, which I could probably get rid of, but I don't want to. It's like, I'm not sure if I want to get rid of those. Kind of want to keep them. And so starting from afresh, it's not from afresh because it's just folders. I just copied the folder. I just copied the folders in. But now I have actually, because we can share, I'm going to share my screen. I now have a different sort of canvas. I mean, it's the exact same thing as what I had before, but I've got my inbox, which I had in my old one. Well, I still have in my personal one because I still have all the stuff duplicated for the moment. My projects, which is like the main area, and then I've got the noodling of ideas, the curious ideas, and then other ideas. Mainly like these are research files that are essay files now, that are projects that I've put together. So we've got like all these different things are sort of medium priority. I'm interested in them, but not enough to make a video about them or do some like deep dive research yet. Curious is a little bit lower. Other ideas are just research files that I've brought over that are just like random sources blomped together. There's no logical story there. So in my project canvas card, I can see, okay, this is what I'm working on at the moment. The end of writers. It sounds kind of like scary looking at that. It's essentially AI writing. And I've almost done that. I'm going to talk about writing in a minute. And then paused, high priority. So that's like, these are things that I started, but I haven't gone through on yet, which is what I want to do next. High priority. So that's like the next thing I want to go for. It's like an idea, but not quite. And then all the others. And all the tasks are in Morgan. Everything is in Morgan except from the main projects here. So that's that transition. And I think using Morgan, Obsidian, and Zotero as my main three and just altering the workflow a little bit will be how I approach this commute travel thing.
Oh, I cannot wait. Yeah, it's interesting. So for now, my Obsidian hasn't really changed much. I'm relying on it more, even more, which is nice. So for me, I've been using the quick capture more because there's so much to think about. There are so many things that I need to think about on a daily basis. But primarily when it comes to personal, it's all in Morgan because it's just there. And I have to think even less. And the problem right now I find is that once I go into my Obsidian and start thinking about work, which obviously I'm trying to avoid doing, and then I look in there and go, oh yeah, AI. Let's see how this works now. And then I will fall down rabbit holes really quickly. I don't know whether I would split vaults. That has been on my mind recently of splitting vaults. So that yeah, I could perhaps simplify a little bit and streamline a little bit, but I'm not sure for myself yet whether I want to, because
So
in terms of like
what we could do, because what I have in my head is there's all my thinky stuff. There's all my personal stuff. The thinky stuff in my head is the playing. Like that's the playground. It's the fun. It's what I'm interested in, right? So Minecraft, you have a multiplayer server to think and play with essentially your friends and sort of join, blah, 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 blah. And your personal world is doing your own thing, your own sort of private stuff. And you can have as many private things as you want. Where you're at, in my head, it's a similar sort of place. So you have okay, I need to focus on this right now. This is the stuff I actually need to work on. Personal vault. But the play vault, I would imagine, is going to be very similar to mine.
Yeah.
So what you could do, I mean, you don't have to, but you could use my sync vault as your work vault.
Mm.
Because the way the sync vault works is you have a folder, you do your own shit in there. I don't care. And you can say exclude this folder from sync so you don't sync up all your sources, as an example.
Or all my businessy stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I would say like your personal business stuff would be in your personal vault, but obviously organize it the way you want. Because that way you've got a playful environment inside the multiplayer server.
Yeah.
And you've got your I need to be serious and work environment in your private server.
Mm.
Because that's how I have it in my head. So, and I've got links to the server, so I'll share it very quickly so people know what I'm talking about. I have a link right at the top here. It says My Obsidian, and this actually, if I go into, I was playing around with the settings. That's annoying. Okay, where's Canvas? Canvas, and then I want to bring that back on hover. Yeah, there we go. Oh, cool. So this, for those that can see, My Obsidian is the alias, but it actually directs me to My Obsidian Vault, my personal one. So I can click on that and it opens up my personal vault if I want to go there. And because it's in a canvas, I can just go straight there. And I've got like the reverse in my personal. So it doesn't feel like a different vault because when I go there, I just click and boop, there it is. There's my personal vault. Let's move that very quickly.
Well done.
Yeah, so I'll probably, oh yeah, that should be fine. So this is like the personal vault. And then if I want to go back to Vaultcraft, I click on Vaultcraft and it takes me back there.
So my question for you is that what will be your personal vault? Is that like that's the thing I'm interested in because research is your like everything or has been.
Research is work.
Yes.
But it's also play.
Okay. So what will your personal vault become for you? If you can kind of say, obviously.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to go into those files because I'm looking to make sure the screen share wasn't that bad. No, the screen share was fine. Yes, the screen share was fine. Yeah. So there's the book project that I'm working on that is obviously personal. Like it's a book project. So it's not play. It's not something. Essentially, in my head, it's like a filter. Do I want this on my published website? So that's the book project, and then the course is obviously a personal project. I'm not going to put all the course tasks on the published website. Like I wouldn't want people to see that. Caracorder, learning that. I've put that on hold because I'm not going to be taking my Caracorder, so I need to learn how to type on QWERTY again. Like doing all the letters, that's fine. But as soon as I get to like hotkeys and shortcuts, because I'm so used to using my little finger for like alt and things for on the Caracorder, I'm like, oh wait, where's the control key again? Where's the alt key again? But yeah, so the Caracorder help is my personal.
Just imagine you working, you like, you control. Yeah.
Recording a time lapse. I was watching it back and I'm like, where's the but yeah, and then learning chess, sign language, the football information for the club that I help run, sort of the admin stuff, all that sort of like the stuff that I wouldn't put on a published blog website, basically. Anything that is blog worthy, obviously that's subjective, would then go in my knowledge vault, my play vault, my second brain, whatever you want to call it, which because of the work I do is actually quite a lot. A lot of it is play because
That's
I'm a knowledge worker.
That's what I was thinking, because that was my instant reaction. I'm like, research for me is not necessarily, well, it's becoming more front and center now because of what I want to actually achieve and do in my business with the limited time I actually have now. Like, I want to do more research. I actually want to be doing that. And now I have a little bit more capacity because I am not the sole breadwinner anymore to be able to do more research.
Right. So I know I spoke about this a while back, having like Vaultcraft as a Hermitcraft type series, because Minecraft is what I watch. Like it's my free time sort of thing. This is what I have in my head for the way I see my channel to an extent going is an episode being like a Hermitcraft episode. I am building this house. I am learning about this thing. I'm doing these 3 projects. I'm exploring these 3 ideas. It's very transferable. And when you look at a time lapse in Hermitcraft, you're looking at them build up all these things. When you look at a time lapse of someone researching, you're looking at them flick through all the articles, go through all of the different writing processes, etc., etc. And then when the Hermitcraft or the Hermit says, oh, I did this because of this block palette, or I chose this because of this design style. I researched this because of this question. I had this question, so use this tool. It's showing the process of not building a Minecraft house, but building your understanding around a topic. And you don't have to finish the house in one episode. I don't have to finish an essay in one episode. If I decide I'm going to research neurodivergence, that ain't going to be a 10-hour episode. Well, a 10-hour research episode put into 10 minutes. That's going to be right, I sat there for 10 hours researching this one thought and came up with this sort of summary, but now I have all these other questions. Join me next week where I try and explore that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my research topics right now. And
but this is why I find this kind of interesting is if I have no idea how it would work, but if I do treat Vaultcraft like Hermitcraft, you can do your own project. You build your own house. You build your own neurodivergent thing. I build my own thing. I can obviously look at yours because we'll have the access to the same thing. People on Publish may be able to, like, they'd be able to see both because I'd be able to publish everything because it's obviously a published site. So it goes like up live. So people can see your work, people can see my work, and then we can do a collaborative build or collaborative essay project inside the vault. And it's not like anyone can join, just like Hermitcraft. It's not like a public server.
That's kind of cool.
And all you would need to do to be a vaulter, I have no idea. Like Hermitcraft is, you'd have a hermit in Hermitcraft. I have no idea. I call it Vaultcraft. Maybe you come up with a different name. I don't know. But the person.
No, to be quite honest, I quite like Vaultcraft. That is a brandable name.
Well, it's an obsidian vault, and you're crafting your knowledge. Vaultcraft. Yeah. But I have no idea what a person would be in it. A vaulter. I have no idea. But yeah, so
a knowledge crafter.
A crafter. Maybe just crafter. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, what all you'd need to do is essentially show the process of you researching the thing, which could, I mean, the video I'm working on at the moment is going to look like a lot of effort, but it's really not, because all it is me going, I'm going to do this, setting up the camera, and then sitting down for an hour or 2 hours doing what I want to do. And then just squishing it in the timeline, video timeline, and then saying, this is what I found out, this is what I'm going to do now. Repeat process. So I'm doing the work, I'm just basically doing like a log, like a video log of this is what I'm doing.
Do you know what? That is probably the most easiest, and that's actually really interesting.
Because that's all Hermitcraft do. I mean, yes, there's loads of behind the scenes work. They need to collect the resources, blah, blah, blah. But it's exactly the same. You're doing what you want to do. You're doing the research. You're just sharing with people the highlights of the research in a video. And then if people want to explore it, Hermitcraft people can't explore. They have to watch other people's videos. But you'd be able to explore exactly what we're writing, what we're working on, because of Publish.
That's kind of fun.
I think that's kind of cool. I mean, that's what I'm working on, and you're more than happy to join in.
That would be fun.
Because it's one way to work together and work with YouTube. So it's because I know you've been debating about whether you go back to YouTube or not, what you do on YouTube, and we've explored you sharing some research inside of business on YouTube. And this is, I think, a way to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice way of doing it. And it's really, what I need is low. It needs to be, the effort that I put in needs to be big. Like, returns need to be far bigger than what I put in. And I like editing. I actually enjoy editing.
I don't. I don't in the slightest.
It's a creative process for me. I enjoy editing, and always have done. It's just the amount of work and effort that takes into editing is just way too much.
I mean, all you'd need to do is just put a camera up somewhere. I mean, I've
I already
changed.
have a camera.
Well, yeah, I've changed the angle. I've used my tripod and just moved it to like basically 3 different spots that the wires reach in my room. And then I've just gone between the camera spots per time lapse. And then just spoken about what I did, why I did it, and then going through that way. Whether it'll work or not, no idea. But I'm
Yeah,
doing the work.
It would be fun. I would enjoy it. I don't give a shit if anyone else did.
Exactly, but that's what I mean. Like I'm researching, which is what I want to do, and I'm sharing what I'm researching. And obviously, if there are things that come up, like Obsidian did an update, now I'm doing this, it will appear in the video, because I'm going to talk about my process. Like Minecrafters talk about the block palette and how they place blocks upside down to get the stair to face the right way. If you don't play Minecraft, it makes no sense to you. And in the same way, if you don't research, things won't make sense to you. When I say, oh, I've used Zotero and now I have an imported file with highlights, people that don't use Zotero, straight over the head. But it's only like a 2 or 3 second part of this video of me sharing stuff. Same with Nerdforge and their videos. When they say, oh, I'm using this type of resin because it sticks to something better or looks like, I have no idea what they're talking about. It looks pretty.
Did you see the video? Did you see the video?
With a hand, yeah, well, the finger,
so
yeah.
Cool.
So
the
cool.
robot thing, the robot hand was so cool.
But it's like I watched the video.
I watched that yesterday. I was like, that's so cool.
I watched it 2 minutes after it came out. Notification, I'm on that. But it's accessible to anyone that isn't in the field. Like, I am not a professional crafter. I can't paint, I can't draw, I can't build. Like, okay, I can't do it very well. The quality is low. Okay, like stick figures is where I'm at. But it's interesting to watch. Just watch an expert in their area, in their field, get excited about something. I don't play Minecraft. I just enjoy watching it. Yeah, it looks cool at the end. And when I think about knowledge work, no, an essay doesn't look cool. But the ideas they talk about, you're like, oh, that is cool. Like when you think of Vsauce and Veritasium, a lot of the stuff they talk about, it doesn't look cool. It just it sounds cool and it gets you thinking. So I figured, hey, let's just try and combine the two together in some way. I mean, it's essentially journalism, just sharing the process.
It's pretty cool and sounds like not a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Because you just speed it up and talk over it.
But one thing I have learned, writing takes far longer than I remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Writing for an essay at uni was easy because I had like, okay, you have this many words, so you sort of bump out some of the sentences to get some more words in, and you sort of just follow the grading criteria. But when you're not writing to a grading criteria and you're writing for people like, why should I care? You then actually have to think about what you're writing. You need to actually go backwards and forwards in the writing process to argue with yourself. Is that a good point? Is that not a good point? Is this really valuable or not?
So,
and I can sit there for 10 minutes on like 2 or 3 words.
That happened to me. So I was like, right, I'm doing this thing about transitional systems. This is literally ecological dynamics in practice. It's time to talk about it in my business email list with people who are businesses. That was the hardest section I've ever written. I rewrote it, and I actually had to redesign my email because I went to over 1,000 words. I had to redesign my entire email like template to provide like, here is what I spoke about. I mean, I cheated and used ChatGPT because ChatGPT can summarize far better than me. So I let it. Summarized at the moment. ChatGPT summarized my post for me, and I gave it very specific prompts because I wanted it to have this, and this. The more specific your prompt, the better. Obviously, it's what I teach in my thing. Like, I told it what I wanted to hear. I wanted it to talk about ecological dynamics. I wanted it to talk about transitional systems. I wanted it to use the emotion and the language that I used in the post. And then it created a relatively decent one, which I slightly tweaked. And it was decent enough for me to use. It was like nearly 1,000 words, and most people were not ready for that.
And that's so when I started writing, I've got the wrong vault up. Let me just quickly switch to Vaultcraft so I remember the name of it. The End of Writers. When I started writing that essay, I mean, you'll see it in the video that comes out when I've done it, because I still need to like actually write the closing thoughts. I set myself, so premise of the video, spoilers for those that want to watch the video, I set myself 10 hours to research ChatGPT, right? And I was like, okay, that should be enough time to get the research done and write it. I wrote it with 57 minutes to go, but it didn't make any effing sense. Like it was literally just bullet point after bullet point. I thought, okay, I really need to think this through. And while I was thinking this through and writing it out, I'm developing my ideas. I'm building up stronger arguments. And I would say I have pretty strong arguments for all of the elements that I talk about in the essay now. Let me just bring up my stopwatch. Where am I at the moment? I am on 6 hours and 16 minutes writing. That's 6 hours and 60 minutes longer than I'd set myself, because I thought writing would take like 2-3 hours. No, writing has taken 8 to 9 hours. And this is where, I mean, I can obviously say AI won't do that. AI won't be able to write the same way, because writing is far more complicated than putting words after one another. That's the premise.
Absolutely. And I completely, I mean, this is something that I've been like talking about a lot. Because one of the first things that content, like what people are saying in the business world, is, oh, they can write your content for you. Yes, it can, but that depends on
with caveats.
Yeah, it can, but it won't do as well as you will. It's still, I always view and will forever view ChatGPT as as a way of reducing inertia. That is it. That's the only thing it can do really, really well. Is it's reduce up currently, of course, with it moving so fast. It's like it just reduces inertia. That's how I use it. When I don't know where to start, I start with ChatGPT. Once I get started, I start getting questions. My brain starts asking questions. Once my brain starts asking questions, I go into research. I dive into all of the places that I possibly could to find more research, to figure stuff out, to ask more questions, to figure stuff. But I start with ChatGPT. That is my start and never my end. The only time it comes back at the end is when I struggle to write a conclusion. I do find conclusions boring and hard, so I ask it to write one based on the information it's got so far. Most of my work stuff is short. That's never going to work now. So I'm going to have to do that.
That's where I think human expertise trumps AI all the time, because you can make things short. It depends the quality of the content you want to create.
Yeah.
And when you said conclusion, I had a bit of a I want to fight you moment again, because I had a conversation with someone yesterday on Twitter, and long story short, they said they spoke about conclusions, and I said, I don't see academics as having a conclusion. I don't think articles should have conclusions. I don't think a conclusion exists in science, because science is an ongoing conversation. So there isn't a conclusion to a study. There are multiple interpretations which can be taken with different perspectives using prior knowledge that can lead to different ways of thinking. Not a conclusion.
I like that.
It's not okay, this is the end of the story. Because if it's the end of the story, you don't need to go further. If you say if further questions could be, well, as soon as you say further questions, now you need an interpretation of the results, not a conclusion of the results.
Oh, I like that so much better. I realize my issue with conclusions. It's so finite, which quite frankly I hate. I hate the whole binary of.
Yeah, exactly. But that's one of my problems with a lot of academic articles and their conclusions, which is why I don't like. I read the conclusion, but I pay more attention to the discussion, because I see the discussion as the closing thoughts. Like that's what I'm writing. I write closing thoughts. Like these are the thoughts I currently have at the moment, like with a sort of like an open mind to different perspectives. Because like I know that I've left out this, I haven't considered that. There are perspectives over here that I haven't included in this summary. It's not a conclusion because it's not an end, but I haven't included all of the perspectives in the closing thoughts I have. So I know it's an ongoing conversation, which is one of the reasons why I'm like, Vaultcraft is more than a list of essays. It's an ongoing conversation. And what I want it to be for the projects I write is, okay, this is one project, one building, one house, but it actually goes into another building. It's kind of like in Minecraft, you have a house at the top, but then underground you got another thing. So your base becomes like this entire area of all these different builds that are interlinked with water tunnels and redstone all over the place. And Obsidian's the same. It's just you link with a link, and you can backlink with a link rather than redstone
And then
water
with the
tunnels.
Vaultcraft stuff, you're almost doubling down on the research, because we research different things and have different things that we focus on. And so combining that into that's fascinating.
And not being funny, but no offense, I source more than you.
Oh yeah.
And if you want to find a source about something, you can go into my projects. And if we share the source files, look at my source file, you could look through my notes, or just click on the link and then it take you to the source.
Yeah.
Rather than you having to do your own research. And then you can ask me about my interpretation, my story behind that source, which AI will never be able to give you, because AI can't collect all of that information from an expert's perspective and give nuanced explanations. It just can't do that yet. And I don't think it will be able to do that, because it requires understanding, and AI doesn't have understanding.
It doesn't understand. AI does not understand. It can't understand.
Which, cool. Yeah, which to me is exciting. But it's a work in progress. It's a project. I don't know if it's going to work or not.
It'd be fun.
I mean, you've already got access to the vault, because it's the Internet Academics one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've synced up my entire thing to it yet. I'm going to just confirm. No, it is. It is. So if you open up that vault, you'll probably have to wait a while, because I've synced up everything. So that's 4,515 files and 8 folders, and I haven't excluded anything yet. So, yep.
Fun.
But because Obsidian gives you a blank slate, you can just not sync anything to the sync vault and then just add stuff to your local vault. So when you're doing your multiplayer stuff, you've got your own vault, your own experience, your own plugins, blah, blah, blah. I've got my own one, just like Minecraft. Each player has their own plugins, their own add-ons for their experience, but they still play on the same server. I'm using my own plugins, my own add-ons, but we're playing in the same sync vault. And are you now trying to make the yeah, you're doing it now.
What are you talking about? Nah, nothing. I'm not looking at nothing.
No, it's not like you're looking over different screens with the screen light changing as you push buttons.
Nah, I will open it when we finish, because it's not there right now. I have to go play and tweet.
Yeah, I have to fiddle. Yeah, but yeah, so if anyone is interested in sort of like sharing ideas, sharing thoughts, or seeing what's going on, I haven't put it on Publish yet, because Publish is still my own stuff. It's a work in progress, but let us know your thoughts, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's in your comments.
Would you be interested? That would be good to hear. I'd be intrigued if people want to see that too.
Yeah. And what part of the process would you be interested in? I know a lot of people that listen to this are Obsidian users. Like, would you want to know the technical side, like behind how we've set up the sync vault and how we'd work together? Because obviously you can't work on the same file at the same time, which is, I don't think it's much of an issue, because unless you're doing a collaborative thing, you don't really need it, because you'd be working in your own folder.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, let us know your thoughts, worries, concerns, ideas, names.
Yeah, what do we call people who do this? That'd be fun. Let's have some marketing people.
Yeah, because knowledge workers is boring.
Yeah.
I mean, Hermitcraft has a community, and Building a Second Brain has a community. But Building a Second Brain's community, this could be a hot take, to me, is wannabe workers. Like, a lot of the people in the BASB want to be knowledge workers.
They want to learn how to be a knowledge worker rather than be a knowledge worker. Yeah.
The amount of people... So
I have to take that hot take and say, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because I was one of them. I was one of them. I wanted to be a knowledge worker, but since actually doing it, I've not been in there since, because I'm like, oh, they talk about it, not
do it. And that's why I want to be Vaultcraft. I want to do it.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, YouTube seems to be pushing some of my research videos to people. like my research videos, like me going through different research papers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perhaps your post saying we don't think the research papers are going well means people are going back to the research videos.
Maybe.
That's
I'm
probably what it
really
is.
not sure, but some of them are like pushing. I mean, even my ecological dynamics one, which is very heavy, got a few comments, and I was like, one, you watched this. Two, you understood some of this. Three, you actually had questions about this. Okay, I'm interested. And people are saying, like the comments that I've heard is, I haven't heard anyone else in the PKM space talk about this. Can you refer me to some? And I'm just going to say no. I'm just going to say no. Like I don't know of anyone else that is talking about systems the way I talk about them, about ecological dynamics in any format, apart from skill acquisition researchers, and anyone going into depth about learning into the science, going deeper than what ChatGPT can throw at you or what you can Google or Bing in a couple of seconds. Sleep is important. No shit. You need to eat food. No shit. Like, duh.
Oh, I know. This is something that like I am finally leaning into because I remember us saying this in the podcast last week, like what my purple cow thing is. It's that ecological dynamics conversation and all of that in business. That's the purple cow or whatever. I can't remember exactly what you said, but
Purple Cow is the name of Seth Godin's book, and that's the idea of becoming a linchpin.
Yeah.
Linchpin's obviously the other book, but yeah, Purple Cow it's make something noticeable. I think extraordinary is the word he looks for. Extraordinary. You're not ordinary, you're extraordinary because you're bringing something extra to it. And the reason Purple Cow comes to it, if I've got the story correct, is he was driving in a car somewhere and his kids were looking out the window, saw a cow, and then looked straight back in the car. And he said something along the lines of, it's a cow. Once they'd seen it, they'd seen them all. Whereas if it was a purple cow, it's not a look out the window, get back in. It's look, oh my God, look, it's a purple cow. It's completely different. And you've got to tell everyone about it. I saw a purple cow.
Yeah.
How do you get that? Oh my God, that's so different. We need to talk about this. How do you get that feel? Tiago had that 12 years ago in building a second brain. Like not many people were talking about this thing. It's like, oh, this is so different. We need to talk about this. But now everyone talks about BSB and PKM. It's just a normal cow. I mean, I don't want to call him a cow, but you get the analogy.
Yeah, it's now more in the mainstream knowledge, which is great. But
yeah, it's a good thing.
I've had a number of clients who are not in the PKM space go, yeah, I read Tiago's book, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna have so many chats that are so much deeper and so much like you're gonna learn so much.
But they're at a starting point. So what he's doing is great. I love it. And he's brought
absolutely.
it to the mainstream. But now it's like, okay, the knowledge workers, they're in the thing. What's the next step? To me, ecological dynamics, but ecological dynamics is also the next step for every physical worker. So physiotherapy, strength and conditioning, sports coaching, that's still a process. There's still a long way to go for it to like happen in the field that it's actually moving like forwards in. When you look at fields that skill acquisition's not involved, as motor learning's not there, how do you bring ED in there? Be a purple cow, and you got to fail a lot. And the amount of times I failed at explaining things through an ED lens to someone that isn't in skill acquisition, I can't count. Far too many, because there are terms in there that have assumptions behind it that people just don't grasp. And that's part of what I want Vaultcraft to be. Vaultcraft to be me creating an environment, ED, that can build out parts, the projects, in the system, Vaultcraft, to foster and emerge different understandings and ideologies, which just happens to be ED.
Yeah, it's interesting because so I sent that email and I had quite a lot of people reply. Someone was like, I will summarize, but they were like, I've never heard it. Please talk more about this. Because I actually just went, look, this is some deep, heavy stuff. I'm barely scratching the surface. I haven't given you all of the details, but this is a good start. Are you interested in more? Do you want more of this? This is a longer email, and if you want more, they'll be longer. And a number of people have replied saying, "Thank you. This is actually seems remarkably simple." And I'm like, I found
In
that reply
practice,
in practice, no, but like when you actually, it is simple.
it's intuitive.
Yes, that's the word. It is intuitive. It's like, oh yeah, okay, uh-huh, yeah, that answers, because that was the thing with.
The issue with intuition and it being somewhat obvious is it's then very difficult to know how it changes the way you currently work and how it applies. And this
Mm,
was a recent conversation that Rob Gray spoke to. I can't remember the people's names, but it was a physiotherapy related conversation about ecological dynamics. And in physiotherapy, they did an ED course for physiotherapists, and in physiotherapy normally there's a correct way to move because injuries, blah blah blah. Not going to talk about it too much, but essentially they were trying to teach ED to these physiotherapists, and these physiotherapists that had no idea what ED was, that were learning about it, were going, "Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, that makes sense. I understand that." But then when you look at their practice, they changed nothing. Like
mm,
it was the smallest of changes, and you're like, "No, no, you." What's happened, what we guess has happened, is they've gone, oh yeah, that makes sense, I understand it now, the illusion of understanding through explanation, I can now do this. No. Putting ED into practice takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of thought, because you're retraining the way that you've been taught, or
yeah.
the way that your learning has emerged through the educational system. So you've got to retrain it, and retraining takes time, thought, effort, and normally other people to sort of bounce ideas off of. Because if I was to say to you, what's an affordance? What's a constraint? Your initial answer could be, oh, it's this. Or it be, wait, I need to have a look at some of my notes, or I ain't got an effing clue. Like, there's going to be different levels, and you need someone to speak to
Yeah.
about that. And AI is not going to give you the answers because it doesn't know what ED is yet.
No, no, it really doesn't. It tries, bless its heart, it tries.
Yes.
And Bing has come closest, but it cheats and uses the internet. And even then,
What do you mean
the source
cheat? Are you saying humans cheat when they search for something?
no. Well,
Oh,
not
this is my
research.
gripe with some of the the academic people moaning about AI. Like, oh no, it's cheating. It's academically dishonest. Why? It's the same as searching on Google or Bing for a search result and then copy and pasting stuff from an academic paper they found. Like BTEC students copy from Wikipedia all the time. Academic students copy from academic papers all the time. They just change a couple of words. AI is doing the same thing. It's just quicker.
Yeah.
Like, quit moaning about a perceived problem you see AI's created and start solving the problems that's already been there.
Yeah.
I could get really antsy about that, but
I still have to. I still want to know all the behind the scenes stuff, so I'm not going to let you. I'm just like, no.
All right, yeah. Well, there is likely to be an update at some point on my channel about it, and I need to speak to the person to see how much I'm allowed to disclose and when I'm allowed to disclose it.
Nah, I will wait for that.
So, well, everyone else can wait for that.
It's so cool.
Sorry, everyone else. But yeah, I mean, it does relate to some of the stuff that I said in the last video. So people aren't stupid. They can probably put 2 and 2 together.
I make 20.
Yeah, exactly. 22. 2 and 2, 22. Come on.
Of course, yeah.
Get your maths right.
I know, right?
Yeah. As a final thought, right? Only because I said get your maths right. I said to my maths teacher, this is how annoying I was as a student, right? I said to my maths teacher, why does 1 add 1 equal 3? And they said it doesn't. And I said, well, it does. I know I've told you this before. Because if you have 1.4 rounded, that's 1. And if you have 1.4 rounded, that's 1. But if you have 1.4 add 1.4, that's 2.8. And 2.8 rounded is 3. And they were like, yeah, but that's not the same calculation. Yeah, it is. 1.4 and 1.4 is 2.8. You round all 3 of those numbers, you got 1 and 1 is 3. And they were like, well, no, because you can't do the rounding at the end. So why do you do the rounding at the beginning? And that's the question I asked them, and they said, I don't know. I was like, that's the sort of student I was.
I love it.
I was just a pain in the ass. Right. Yeah, if you have any thoughts on Vaultcraft, let us know.
Yes, do.
And we'll see you next week. This is like half the length of last week's episode.
Yeah, enjoy this week's episode that's currently live now.
Yeah.
2 hours.
AI.
Bye.
Right.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.